Come on, do it.
Oh yeah, there we go. We gotta have
C1, take one.
My official title is probably Chief Bottle Washer, but I guess I'm the owner and I guess like kind of the head producer, chief producer, or chief engineer or whatever of my private production house in New Jersey, in Jersey City, New Jersey, which is kind of like it's kind of like the New Jersey side of New York City. It's right across the river, right across the water from the Empire State Building and whatnot. And our outfit is called Big Blue Meenie. And kind of a stupid, funny, old, crazy story I won't bother you with. And and what I do here is I have a staff of I have a whole staff of about a dozen engineers, and we make records. And we kind of make all different types of records, but most of the stuff we make is rock-oriented stuff. It's mostly in the rock genre. But so we're sitting in my Studio B live room, my main live room, which is the big live room where we cut drums and stuff. But we have 4 control rooms here, and we have all the different equipment and microphones and stuff and whatnot. And we today's kind of a quiet day, but lots of days it's bedlam. There's 20 musicians from 4 different bands running around and whatnot. But this is a multi-room private production recording studio thing, and has been for a while. It's a community of engineers, and I'm kind of like the old guy. And basically, I'm like the grandpa that oversees what all the young guys do. So I got all hip young guys who kind of know what's going on, and they are the guys who make most of the records, actually make them, and I get to have fun and act like a teenager and watch them. And every once in a while I get to do stuff too. So I get to mix them on occasion too. I get to work on them and, mix stuff and whatnot. But that's what I do.
The reason that I'm actually sitting here and that I really wanted to do this interview is that you are so passionate about what you do.
Well, thanks.
But could you tell me a little bit the journey that led you here? But not like the facts, but more like the emotions.
Okay, sure. Well, I fell in love with music as a boy, and I'm the son of a musician. My mom was a pianist, and still is, and she's in her 80s, and she still plays. I think on a cage. Got arthritis now, but she still plays some. And so I grew up in a very musical household. Now I grew up sort of up near Canada, and what I really wanted to do was play ice hockey. I didn't want to be caught dead playing music. I thought music was for girls. I had a lot of sisters, and they all were musicians, and I just didn't want to learn how to play Moonlight Sonata. I wanted to go and play hockey and beat people up. And so for when I was young, I was always trying to avoid it. And they have to go in there. My mother would march me in and sit me in front of the piano, and I'd have to play, and I hated it. And so I took up the drums because I thought I would drive my parents crazy and stop the madness, and they'd let me just go play hockey, and I wouldn't have to practice piano anymore. But I was mistaken, because my mother said, "Okay, that's fine. You can play the drums now, and I'll go practice the drums." And what happened, of course, was I fell in love with the drums, and I loved that instrument. That was the instrument for me. And so once I started playing the drums, then that was it. I got the bug, and then just sticking with the passion thing, the passion just came from playing, And by the time I was in early high school, it was all working out great anyways, because you were able to pick up a lot more girls as a musician than you ever could as a hockey player. So everything was working out perfectly for me. And so anyways... But it's just I just love music, and I've always loved music, but this is what happens, I think, is that you in life you find certain things on your way as you make your way through your life that really mean a lot to you, and they start to mean a lot to you, and then if you invest many times, I think, in those things, if they're disciplines or creative pursuits or whatever, as you start to invest time in them, you start to get a yield on them. They become everything goes to another level, and yet another level, and yet another level. And then your whole life sometimes, and this certainly has happened to me, turns into trying to always go to the next level. It's like the endless video game where you never beat the machine. And but the idea for me is just I guess without getting too crazy existentialistic about it, I would say this: for some people. Some people will turn to religions as a path towards spirituality. I discovered music as a path for me towards spirituality before I was even pretty much in the double digits. I was 9 or 10 years old by the time I figured out that music really was, if there was a God or something, music was kind of my path towards it. It was the thing that, for me, seemed to come from someplace else, and it went through you. And so you ended up being kind of like a conduit for big energies that felt a lot bigger than you. Yeah. And were like good stuff. And so it didn't feel real connected to earth, not very earthbound. It seemed like above this thing. And I think I was saying the other day when I was talking to you, that, for me, music is like, it's this ancient, invisible, beautiful art, this powerful art that's unbelievably powerful. It can really change things. And because of that, it almost ends up being like, well, I guess the thing I would say is it ends up being like war with no casualties, no exchange of gunfire or real estate. And you can really change stuff. You can change the way whole groups of people think. You can enact changes in people. It's this wonderful kind of, and the people say, and it may be cliche, but it's also really true. It's a communication. It's a way to communicate stuff, to communicate emotions and ideas and all kinds of other stuff like that. And once you get it, once you get the bug, and you get your first taste of really being able to do that, once you either wow a crowd at a live show, or you make a record that you listen to later and you really love it and you believe in it and stuff, then you're kind of doomed. At that point, you're what are you gonna do? What are you gonna? You're gonna open a really successful factory footwear outlet. There's not a lot of stuff you can think of right off the top of your head where you're thinking like, gee, I'd really much rather be doing X. And I don't know. I think those guys are the guys who are the lifers. They're just gonna, they're doomed. They're gonna go to the grave making music. The last thing they do is like, oh no, change the. Whatever. And my joke has always been that they're gonna find me, past that. I'm gonna be like that. Like they're gonna find me, in Pompeii they've got the guy still baking the bread, petrified. When the mountain blew up, when Vesuvius blew up in 79 A.D. And I'm gonna be like that with the console. They're gonna find me like this over the console, but over the recording console. But it's to me that sounds morbid, but it's actually a funny, hilarious thing. And but just if you find something in your life that just never that you can do and hopefully do to even make your living from it, and it's your joy, it's the single greatest source of joy, of transcendent joy in your life. Oh, well, maybe the second greatest. There's my boy and girl. All right, you. What are you doing, you? Oh my God. Oh no. All right. No, more of them. But I guess the point is that if you find something that you can do for your life mission, your life pursuit, and it's something that feels very joyous and you just love doing it, then you never work a day in your life. Yeah. You don't ever work. And I don't know, every time I wasn't doing music and I had to, do something for a living, all I could dream about was something like this, was just saying, no, all I really want to do, my concept of success is to be able to do music and just do music and not have to do anything else, to fill my days with making music. And because I love music, and by proxy, I love musicians. I love working with musicians. They're my favorite people, and they really are. Well, they're kindred spirits.
Yeah.
So they're filled with the same kind of fascination with music that I am. So it's not hard to understand them or get along with them, or it's easy to sympathize, or as the saying goes, empathize with them. It's easy to empathize with them. So, but these things all led me into being a musician, and initially, but I was always really interested in recording too. I was always, very interested in, capturing sound, listening to it back, and I was always that guy in the band, like, oh yeah, the drummer, records too, type of thing. The drummer's an engineer too. I was always that guy, and so as I started to work my way through my 20s. I started doing as much recording as I was ever doing playing in bands and whatnot, and then eventually it just started going. But to me, it's been one process. I don't see any difference. I really don't, and I still play. I mean, I was up till 5 o'clock in the morning cutting a crazy, nutty jazz piano solo, and I still play keyboards and have my whole life too, never stopped. At 5:30 in the morning, not last night, but the night before, and up till 5:30 in the morning, cutting some crazy thing. I still play. I play every day, drum every day, couple hours, drum 2 hours before you guys got here. And it's all one thing for me. It's the concept is that we're grown individuals, adults, ostensibly, changing air pressure level, moving air around, and it's kind of a ridiculous undertaking, but it's so amazing. Who wants to do anything else? That's it. So that's it. And I just kind of kept making records and got a little lucky, made a few that folks liked, and that sort of one thing led to another, and I got to make more records, and people would say, oh, let's try to use him or something, and then you just keep going, and every day you wake up and paint yourself and go, yeah, they still haven't discovered I'm a fake.
I think you're probably the most unfake, genuine person alive.
I don't know about that. Well, thank you for saying. But that's it. So that's kind of my, that's how we got here.
Well, from hearing you talk, I kind of get the impression that music has been your teacher in life.
Absolutely.
And tell me if I'm getting too weird with my questions, but
no, not at all.
But could you tell me the meaning of life for you as a person?
Yeah, love.
Love.
Yeah, love. Period. That's what it's all about. It's to me, that's what it's all about. That's the mission. It's the single best thing that humans can do. It's the best thing that they can give. It's the best thing that they can receive. It's the greatest thing that humans can do is to create and nurture and promote and love each other. Promote the concept of love. And obviously, I don't just mean romantic love. I mean all of the various flavors that love comes in. Now, love is a funny thing because. If we have to give it a gender, I'll say she's. She's not, she comes in a lot of different packages and works in a lot of different ways and does many different things. And there's a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't subscribe to the concept of love that really are kind of love. There's many things that are, well, it's funny. Let's look at this. Let's look at this concept. Let's say, hey, if we were to look at a great American, we'll just stick with music a little bit here, as the vehicle of love. And that's why I think music is just the greatest, because I think it's the best vehicle of love ever. And so we say, hey, Woody Guthrie, American strumming songwriter guy, and it's the Dust Bowl and the American Depression, and nobody's got a pot to piss in, and everybody, and Woody Guthrie saying, this land is your land, this land is my land, strumming his guitar, and he brings a simple message to people, and his message is about hope and all this other stuff, but really, it's a cherishing gesture. I mean, this guy could be sitting there going, you know, we're fucked, everybody's an asshole, kill me now, and he's not. He's still doing this thing about saying, you know, come on, like, you know, he's got a message of hope and all these other things. Okay, so that's one pretty easy, and we'll just stick with the American guys for a second, to look at an indigenous American art form that is something that came kind of from the U.S., just whatever. Some guy, you know, strumming his guitar and singing, and then we can look at another one, and this is where we really kind of maybe gets a little unusual. See, I'll look at 1984 and I'll see Slayer. Now, Slayer's from Texas, they're from Dust Bowl also. So, here's the deal. So people go, well, Slayer, you know, Angel of Death, and, you know, Haunting the Chapel, and blah, 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 blah. And I say, you know what? Slayer might have some ugly themes to kind of talk about. They may have some kind of brutal stuff, and they have a lot of iconoclastic stuff, you know, Smash the Religion thing and all this stuff. But Slayer kind of loves on their fans in their own weird way. You go to the Slayer show, and the kids are going crazy and stage diving and jumping up and down, and et cetera, et cetera. And face it, the thing that they're moved by, you know, all the tremendous energy and aggression and all this stuff of Slayer, which is awesome, but there's a weird kind of love at work there. See, to me, I'm not seeing that big of a difference between Slayer and Woody Guthrie. And call me crazy, but it's still, we're still dealing in the same type of coin, because Slayer goes up, they do their thing, and they play these crazy songs, and the kids get all bent out of shape and go wild. They're like, yeah, Slayer rules. Well, how does Slayer rule? Well, we love Slayer. We love the way they make us feel. It's love. We're back to love. It's a love thing, again. So that's what I mean when I say kind of, you can't just go like, oh yeah, we're all gonna wear beads and, you know, and we'll play Mamas and Papas songs and we'll hang out at Woodstock. That's the way it's gotta be. Well, that's one type of way of doing love in music. But, you know, you can listen to some crazy stuff and fall in love with it and love it, and I certainly love the Mighty Slayer, and among other things, and you can listen to crazy stuff and just say, you know what, I love this stuff, it's great, and it's a type of love, it's a real appreciation, a real affection, an endearment that you feel that comes from the music stirs it in you. And this is a love process. I mean, it's a love process. It brings this out in you, right? So this is it. It's how does that differ from, you know, me seeing my little dogs and going, oh, I love my dogs, they're the greatest. And not really. Same kind of thing. It just happened through music, not through them jumping up and down and biting me on the leg.
Well, I completely understand what you're saying, but I've been wondering a lot, why is it so easy for some people to see the love through music, like the Slayer fans, they'll feel the love, and I completely understand. But then in real life, it's like the masks are back on,
right.
Communication exists, but it doesn't really exist.
Right. Well, the thing is, of course, that's the funny thing. I mean, the thing about music is that, you know, in a perfect world that wasn't this earthbound thing that we have, as Shakespeare said, this mortal coil. And in a perfect world, we could maybe conduct ourselves and surround ourselves with all those noble things that music brings out in us and brings to us and passes through us. And, you know, once again, that's why I say, like, to me, you know, if you think about the march of mankind through recorded history and what's happened with the march of mankind through recorded history, just kind of the way, and not that I have any great understanding of it, but just from what little I kind of know. It's ironically, many times, the times in which mankind has made the greatest, seemingly the periods of the most feverish activity and achievement have been during times of terrible war. And many times, sometimes some of the best stuff that comes out of the ensuing peace when people live and they're not, you know, blowing each other up 24/7 and doing all the crazy stuff, happen because of all the terrible pressures that are put upon men or tribes of men, of tribes of mankind, during times of awful duress, which how much worse does it get than when we're killing each other? That's kind of about as bad as it gets, really, okay? So, it's kind of funny because sometimes out of all these horrible frictions will spring things that later on become really positive things. Well, music can kind of do the same stuff. I mean, and music does it, like I said, with kind of with no casualties. It's sort of, to me, music it's almost, like I said, it's almost like warfare with no casualties. It can be this big, sweeping, powerful thing which can really move whole peoples to action or create these type of feelings. But it is this invisible force that doesn't necessarily leave behind. It doesn't move a stone. It doesn't knock a wall down. It doesn't say, well, that used to be yours and now it's mine. It doesn't do any of those things. So in that way, because of how beautifully and transparently and quietly, if you will, music passes in the night, sometimes it's very easy to look at how people return from any of those transcendent joys that they can gain in music and say, look at the terrible human condition, and to despair on those things. But you know what's so great? That becomes yet another engine, another thing that drives the power of music and gives us something to write about and gives us something to talk about. It gives us something to compare to say, hey, maybe those things are there for a reason. Maybe they're there for us to remark upon them and to reflect upon them and to think about them, to ruminate over them. And maybe it's okay for us to say, you know what, I stood in a line at Burger King today and everybody there fucking pissed me off. And I felt like killing everybody there. And then I went up to the counter, and I finally got to the counter. The food was cold, and the lady was a real asshole to me, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm gonna write my punk rock song, and some kid in Malaysia hears it and thinks it's about something entirely different than what you wrote it about, but it fills him with a great feeling, and he goes out and he helps an old lady cross the street. How do you know? You know what I mean? It's amazing. I mean, we get to move, and the only way I know this stuff happens is because it happened to me. Because as a kid, even just starting out, music would move me to do things. It changed me. I'd buy a record by somebody I loved. I'd invest in the record. I'd invest in what I call the mantle of listenership. They're like a coat, the coat of listenership. And I'd have to earn the record. Sometimes the record would be challenging for me. I would only be able to listen to a song or two, and the rest I wouldn't understand it. I wouldn't give up on it. I'd keep listening to it, and then I'd have to grow. And my mind would have to grow, and I'd invest in the record. And as I invested in the record would fill me with hopefully some positive stuff maybe I'd listen to the song that I absolutely loved, and instead of leaving the house and getting in my car and being an asshole to somebody would cut me off, and instead of me thinking about giving them the finger and throwing a rock at them, maybe I just laugh and be like, woo, like, yeah, nice driving, And I mean, this is it. I mean, we kind of toss these rocks in the pond, right? And we hope that because of our intention and where we place them, that the ripples that kind of spread out can do cool things. And they can. And when you've had it happen to you, it can happen to other people. And then when you become a musician, of course, that becomes your obsession. Your obsession becomes, all right, how are we going to make this thing that we think is so cool and then get other people to think it's cool too? And it's not like we gotta have them think it's cool purely for self-gratification. It's because we know the process of art happens in the completion of other people listening to it and being moved by it. So we know some people won't be moved by it. That's okay, it's cool. Everybody doesn't have to be for everybody. It's just, we're always trying to find those kindred spirits, the other people who will listen to it and be like, these guys are amazing. How do we know that that's a possibility? Because it happened to us. It happened to us. We listen to somebody else and went, they're amazing, I gotta do this. See, and then we end up doing it, and there's some kid somewhere going, they're amazing, I gotta do this. And that's, that's like as humanity passes through time, this is this thing, this is our legacy, this is what we give to each other, this is the torch that we pass from generation to generation through music that just makes it, no matter how it's being captured, recorded, or what the style or fashion or the thing or any of that stuff, it's all just, it's the same thing, it's the same basic concept. And once again, to me, that concept is love. It's just being able to say, in all the strange and sometimes startling colors that love's foliage can come in, because it can come in stuff that looks crazy. But to me, that's what it is. So, sorry that was so long-winded.
No, because everything that you said needed to be said.
Oh, thank you.
and it's an inspiration for people. The words that you use now to describe the force of music is what people sometimes need to hear. Maybe that will be an incentive to make them listen in another way to music, a way that they didn't do yet.
Oh, good, I hope so.
Well, and like another thing about that, I think nowadays with the music industry, there's this word industry, and sometimes it seems to take over. But from personal experience, I've met a lot of musicians. 99% of musicians I have met are really genuine artists who think about it like you do. But sometimes the industry hides that away a little bit, or seems to want to camouflage that. You have worked with loads of musicians and artists. What is your honest view on that? Is the reality, is the heart still there?
Oh yeah. Well, once again, I mean I honestly think that I think that music is to answer the question in the broadest sense, music is so much bigger than any economy, any civilization, any whatever the status quo is, whatever we're doing, whether we're dragging rocks across the desert floor or we're sitting in the penthouse of some big building in Manhattan, music is bigger than all that stuff. That's what makes it so powerful. That's what makes it worth doing. So when I think about the industry of music, well, here's the thing. When you gotta live, you gotta eat, you're human, you gotta do something. And you wanna keep finding a way to do music, if you can, because that's what brings you joy. So if we were back in the days of, let's say we were in medieval England, and I'd be hanging around, I'd probably be the raconteur, but I'd be hanging around with a raconteur and a troubadour, right? We'd be going around, and that's what we do. The raconteur would go, by the way, we got a new king, we're at war with France, and listen to this catchy new song just put together by my buddy here, right? And he strums away on some crazy 9-string thing and sings something. And that's sort of like, that's the idea of like these kind of living newspaper, living storyteller guys, sort of like you got your arts and entertainment, you got your art, entertainment, and news, your media. Those were your media, right? These two jokers wandering around from village to village. Okay. Well, at one point they were the industry, right? Those two guys were the industry. Well, it was pretty easy for the industry to kind of police itself at that particular point. All they had to do was just basically go like, I don't know, can we get a meal? Please, somebody give me something, whatever. And as long as they could find a way to keep some clothing on their back, a roof over their head while they were going from one place to another, in between going to one place to another, and they could continue to have their life and whatnot, then the industry policed itself and everything turned out okay. Well, at some point, you got stuff like, you certainly got, in the 20th century, you got concepts like, this certainly, Western civilization stuff, but certainly even happened other places too. You got these concepts of folks attempting to figure out a way to be able to do music and keep doing music, right? Those uncomfortable intersections of art and commerce. Now, art and commerce is kind of funny because, well, if we had to think about it like, maybe an easy way to think about it would be to say, well, there's kind of butcher, baker, candlestick maker. There's those guys that do that stuff. and you know, there's the soldier and the politician and the restaurateur, and those guys are kind of, a lot of those guys are living in or around the tents of the merchants. Now, I'm not going to talk shit about the merchants. The merchants are okay, because the merchants basically are, a necessary ingredient in what we would call civilization, right? If the idea is that we had to catch every meal that we were going to get, and we had to build every house that we're going to live in, and we're going to have to do everything with each man as an island, we probably wouldn't get a whole lot done. That's how we got into the civilization thing, right? Okay, so the merchants are part of that process, right? They're these guys who say, well, you know, we're going to kind of, you know, for a little loot, we're going to sort of massage around the work and do this stuff, and then we'll make it so everybody can kind of get together and you can live in your house without having to be an architect and a builder, and we'll get you some food without you having to be a farmer or a hunter, and blah, 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 and we'll do all this stuff. So the merchants kind of gotta be, right? We're not saying anything bad, we're not shit-talking the merchants. Okay. But see, we're the artists, and we're kind of, us and the merchants are like, they're like sort of, well, let's imagine we're birds. They're kind of like flightless, fuzzy birds running around on the ground out there in the dusty plains, and we're sort of like pink standing on one leg in the river, you know? Now, we're both birds, but that's sort of where that's kind of like, we're loosely related. Okay. So if we imagine that we're living in a tent village, we're sort of up in the caves above the tent village, like painting on the rock walls, going like, what do you think? It's cool, it's an antelope. No, it looks like a deer. Oh, it's supposed to be an antelope. And they're kind of down over near the riverbed, see, and they're kind of, you know, making their horseshoes and arguing about things and inventing beer and, you know, whatever they're doing down there. And we have very different mindsets. We're kind of all about getting out of the world. We're about all the stuff that we think is better than all the earthbound stuff, all the stuff that isn't related to those cycles of you know, Freud once said all stress is inevitably related to the fear of death, okay? And, you know, to the concept of your own mortality. So you're stuck in a traffic jam, and you're pissed off, and you're like, oh, fuck, we gotta get where we're going. Why are you feeling that way? I mean, well, because you know you're gonna die. And you want that time back. You already want it back. You've been robbed. You know, you're like, kind of, fuck, this sucks. I don't want to stand here and do nothing. Well, the reason why you feel like that, the reason why you feel stress is because you know death is an eventuality, right? Well, we as the artists are a funny bunch, see, because we're kind of saying, well, yeah, you know, the death thing, the stress thing, okay, that's cool, but we can't get too freaky with that because we're trying to do this timeless kind of shit. See, we're trying to act as sort of like gods in our own little universe, like gods on earth, right? Like the traditional monotheistic concept of the God, the creator, the God, the creator. Okay, we're sort of trying to do this stuff. It's not very earthbound. It isn't really attached to the earth too much. And when it gets really good, it certainly doesn't feel earthbound at all. It feels absolutely otherworldly. Well, this is how our mind works and thinks, and this is what we do. So we got to get together, unfortunately, because of the whole thing that we were talking about, civilization, you know, and then the recording, sell the recording, show up at the gig, and pay us to play at the gig and see us so we can play another gig, and you'll come to that one hopefully too. Okay, well, all this stuff, the merchants are the guys who start acting as the enablers in these things. So we kind of got to have them. The way stuff is set up right now. Now, if we were all just hanging around somewhere in the, you know, in Sudan, you know, with a acoustic guitar, just playing, you know, just accompanying the village dinner every night, then we wouldn't probably have to have them. But for what we do, for the quote-unquote Western civilization stuff, they sort of are, I won't say necessary evil, because I don't really think that. They're just something that's got to happen. I mean, they're an inevitability. Okay. Well, so that's where the industry comes in. Well, the thing about the merchants are, they're good at what they do. They don't get our thing. They're not supposed to be our thing. They're not supposed to be the artsy, non-earthbound thing. They're supposed to be the nuts and bolts guys who kind of tie it all together. So I kind of figure if you're going to be a merchant, even if you're involved with art in some way, be a fucking merchant. I mean, do it well, do it good. Because I'd rather have these guys be efficient engines. I'd rather have them be efficient in terms of helping musicians to be able to continue to have a living and create and connect their art with a wider audience and all this stuff. I kind of, see, in a weird way, I don't need my, like, and once again, I'm not talking about the old model specifically, but let's imagine we're still in that, like, 10-year-old model of the record industry thing. If we imagine that still really was the powerful model, I never needed those record business guys to be like super big music guys. I need the fans to be big music guys. I need the musicians to be big music guys. I need those guys, those merchants, to just be able to be smart enough to connect the guys who are making the music with the people who will love the music. And that doesn't necessarily require that they be music guys. I need them to be efficient at what they do. Now, it's a real bummer if I got something good and there's a market for it out there and they will not, for love or money, connect those two things together, right? And that became the conundrum. My band can't get signed. What the fuck? We can't get shows. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is the life, right? This is what you deal with, okay? And those are all the hot points of contention and frustration and all these things that act as flashpoints, as contact points, once again, in this kind of this place of intersection in between art and commerce. But the merchants and the industry and all that stuff, to me, most importantly, must be efficient. Because if it is, hopefully, the single most pervasive wisdom that those fellas who are bean counters, for the most part, and merchants, for the most part, they'll be more focused on the demonstrable successes of saying, well, we found Bruce Springsteen, and he had an audience, and we connected him with the audience, and boy, did we fucking take it to the bank. And see, to me, that as long as there's an efficiency in that, then my fervent hope is that they're going to get all excited about finding the next fucking Bruce Springsteen, and even though they're maybe not thinking, they don't give a damn about how good the music is or isn't, I really don't need them to be. I just need them to be obsessed with the idea that there is something to be gained by connecting art with the folks who should have it. So, in the end, that's my comment on the industry. I wish in a sick way there was a whole fucking lot more of it. Because it would be a system which would clean itself. I'm not here I don't need to force them into an ethical, their motives must be pure. No, I don't need them to put the music first. I need them to put the idea that art is worthy and should be connected with an audience first. And then the rest of it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's where you say, yo, music's powerful. It's bigger than these guys in suits. It's bigger than all this bullshit. And if they can just stand around and go, holy shit, Bill, looks like a big one coming in. Big weather, big weather. They're kind of weathermen at that point. See? Because we're the fucking weather. We're the fucking weather. Those guys are just kind of standing around going, I don't know. I don't think you should be wearing that tinfoil hat standing in a bucket of distilled water, Bill. Because we're the fucking lightning. See, but we gotta have those guys. And some of the problem now, right at the time that we're doing this, the problem right at this point is that there's been big shifts and all kinds of stuff. And those guys are starting to get really fucking rare. And we used to kind of sit around and go, those dirty, rotten bastards, kill them all. See, and now I'm kind of standing around going, geez, we kind of need some of those bastards. Where the hell are those bastards? Because we still have the same conundrums of, can we connect this beautiful thing that we do that's so worth doing? Can we connect it with folks? And can we find a way, somehow, because we're human, because we're mortal, because we have to live in these bodies and exist and eat and stuff. Can we find a way, some mechanism to be able to keep doing it? And hopefully, maybe just that, nothing else. Hopefully, we don't have to. There's an old saying: you wake up with 10 gallons of ambition, and if you're spending 9 of them flipping burgers over at Tasty Freeze, then the one you got left to kind of sit at your piano and come up with a song might start turning into a little bit of a low yield system in terms of getting your music out there. And so in this way, my fervent hope is that not so much that we're going to ever come up with a better model for the suits, for the industry. I think as far as its ethical content, but I do hope that we start to return and find a way to find an efficient one. Because, like I said earlier, I love musicians, and I want to see them all continue to do what they're doing. It's powerful. It's like the best thing that human beings are doing, and has been for a really long time. So, like, as much as I want to clean up the Gulf oil spill and save the ducks and blah, 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 and I think all that stuff should happen too, quite honestly. Like, gotta tell you, music, I think, is the thing most worth saving in all of mankind's endeavors. I don't think, grain of salt, folks. Granted, I'm a biased opinion, but a totally biased opinion. But in my estimation, it's like super powerful, and it's this really super high yield thing that man's been involved in for a while, and it does good stuff, like regularly. Does really good stuff. So, hope that kind of answered the question.
It answered it perfectly, and you taught me a lot, actually.
Thanks.
No, because it's difficult. I mean, you seem to be very balanced, and you kind of, there's so much I want to say. I wish I had some way in music to express it, because in words it's going to be difficult. But you found this balance that makes sense, and another way of viewing it, because I really felt resentment against the industry, because I kind of felt that they lost that ethical view. To me, they need to represent the music and put the music first, because I don't want musicians to be transformed into a product.
Right.
And but it's true that you need those connectors. And
Yeah.
That's
And the thing is, once again, they're a different type of bird. And as we stand in the river on our one leg, like I said, kind of the pink guys standing in the river, we're kind of looking over there, and they're the emus, right? They're wandering around in the bush, and we got to kind of go, well, they are birds, and hopefully, we can do something together. But man, we're never going to be like them. They're really never going to be like us. It's okay. Let's just find a way to get along and have it so that we can hang out in the river and everything's cool. They can hang out over there in the outback and everything's cool over there, and it'll be great. Just figure out a way that we can do this. Once again, those intersections of art and commerce. And I like I said, I just honestly think, and I just add this one kind of disclaimer to the whole thing. I'm not saying that there aren't guys who are in a weird way kind of both. Because you get guys who are both, and in many ways they're giants, right? Those are the giants, are the guys like Ahmed Erdogan's and the people Arif Mardin's and those type of guys who can sort of somehow can do both. They can know all about the mechanisms of the mercantile world of how to connect things, and yet at the heart of it, the passion that really drives them is love of music. So that's always cool when you get them. But I wouldn't ever just say, well, the whole damn place is going to be populated with them. I think those guys are kind of like, if we busted into a meeting of 5,000 people all gathered under the steeple of the Anglican Church, I think we're only going to have a couple of archbishops. And the rest of them are going to kind of be, hanging out, in the pews. And so I don't think all the guys in the quote-unquote industry are gonna have that type of a mindset. It's always awesome when you got them, But like I said, what I really personally feel like I need them to do is be efficient, because like I was saying earlier, I think we're the guys who have to really drive the engine, and we do that by hopefully by creating something wonderful, and then really knowing and knowing that there's an audience for it, and then that becomes, what's the old saying? I can't think of it. It's kind of like, the idea is like, create the marketplace. We got to create the marketplace. You know what I mean? We got to like create the need. That's the one I'm looking for. You create the need. You know, the need for the product. We must create the need for the product. Well, that's going to happen with us, right? With the people moving air around. I mean, we're the guys who are going to create the need. Those jokers are going to like show up and go, it's cool, there's a need. Look, they paper towels, they got to have them. There's stuff all over the place, clean it up, you know. And so it's kind of, once again, we have to sort of find ways to create the need, and then we need those guys to help us connect to folks. And so that's it.
I've heard you use words like transcendent.
Yep.
You know about the balance that we as a person need in life. I think music has probably taught you those things.
Yep.
What can I ask your view on what we are as a human being? Because I'm personally on that way now, trying to balance, kind of in the same way as you have to balance the industry and music and the art, trying to balance my soul and my earthly body that is still here. Mm-hmm. May I have your view on that? Like, what do you think we are? What happens afterwards? Are we our soul? Is it just everything?
Okay.
You know what I mean.
Well, I'll say this. A while back, I started getting a lot more focused on the concept that what was really important for me in life was the process of finding out. And the process, ultimately, to me, I think, in our short little lifetime that we have, we're kind of, here and gone. The process itself, I think, I suspect, might be more important than any of the answers. Mm-hmm. That it's kind of all about saying, well, we're trying to find out, we're just going to keep trying to find out, and in the meantime, love. In the meantime, do something cool, spread some love, have some fun, do something, like I said, be that punk rock kid who helps the little old lady across the street. I don't know where I came up with that. But anyways, I just had this mental picture of it, this kid screw balloon tattooed with big sleeves and okay, granny, dragging the granny across the street somewhere in Arizona. But in any event, I guess, so to me, that's really what it's kind of come down to, is to say, hey, I don't know if I have the answers. In a weird way, I'm having too much fun looking for them to get too freaky about how many I do or don't got, or what my statistical yield is, how well I've done up until this point. My whole thing is if you're driving like hell and you're on a mad pell-mell dash to have as much fun as possible, you kind of don't have a whole lot of time to be looking around at other riders in the heat and wondering too much about what's going on. Try and stay in your lane and conduct yourself like a gentleman or a gentle person, and see if you can do good stuff, because good stuff's pretty easy to just kind of put your finger on, no matter where you came from, what society nurtured you or anything. Good stuff's pretty easy. It's got a feeling attached to you and if you're a musician, you totally know good stuff right off the bat. And so in that way, for me, it's sort of it's all, to me, that's my connectivity. Music is my connectivity. It's my connection. It's my whole conduit to any concept of spirituality. Now, I can't I couldn't necessarily direct a civilization with it. You might be able to. Maybe that's the problem. Nobody's done it. But you couldn't maybe necessarily direct every effort and action and intention of a civilization with it. But it's sort of like, it kind of gives an optimal petri dish, like a little lab dish for all the crazy stuff that's going to happen when people get together to sort of happen in. And so, for me, it's okay if I change my mind on a minute-by-minute basis about what I think is out there, what's it mean, all that stuff. That's okay. That's what I write songs about. That's why I make records. I'm constantly going like, I don't know. What do you think? I'm a producer. That's what we do. I don't know. What do you think? And that's an old producer joke, by the way. But the bottom line is, it's kind of true. It's sort of like saying, that's what's so cool about all this, right? You get to work with, when I do what I do, I make records, I get to work with bands, and these kids will come in, they'll have all wildly disparate and divergent philosophies and approaches and concepts of things, and you got to kind of be able to sit back and go, well, that's kind of cool. I'm sort of digging that. It's not so much about feeling like you gotta embrace anything in particular. It's more about saying, how could we celebrate the differences? How could we say, woo, this is great, we'll have a big party in which we'll celebrate the differences between us. It's fine, it's great. I mean, these things, music by virtue of what it is and how it is this beautiful promoter of tolerance. And if there's one thing that the great apes really need, it's fucking tolerance. And and so in that way, I don't know. I hope that finding a way to live your life through music and trying to do good works, do good things, and all the stuff that I talked about will be enough to help in some small way to tilt the scales of any type of cosmic energy or any of these concepts of spirituality or energy, passage of energy, or energies that pass through the concept of the soul, or any of these other type of things. I really would hope that the old cliche, walk the walk rather than talk the talk, is the thing that musicians really kind of feel is what they do. They're kind of trying to walk the walk, to just say, like, let's make something cool. Let's move people. Let's communicate with people. Let's try and raise man above this earthbound coil, and hope that all things considered, it's a worthy endeavor, a worthy activity that optimizes tilts the scales, that either for us or other people around us in a positive fashion. And I got a lot more obsessed with that. I think if you're a searcher, and I think most musicians are searchers, they're searching around.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a searcher, I think the process is every bit as important as any of the findings. And to me, that's just really, that could have probably said the same thing in a lot of those words by just saying that the process is like, that's where everything is. That's where all the good stuff is, as far as I can tell. It's the process, going through the process.
That's why I ask my questions, not to get answers, but to describe the process and to inspire people to find that process.
Yeah, good, cool.
Well, I'm gonna let you go now.
Okay.
And but I just want to thank you very much because you've inspired me, and I know that you will have inspired the rest of the world too.
Well, geez. Even if one person goes like, yeah, that guy's all right, that'll be good. I'll take it.
I'll connect it to the right market.
Oh, good, all right, thank you. Very nice. All right, it's very nice.